Welcome to part 2 of my series that I like to call Getting the Miami Heat a Big Man.
On almost every video I post, I get a ton of comments saying, this is irrelevant, just get the Miami Heat some size. Well, that's what I'm doing in this 3-part video, so make sure to like and comment your thoughts to help boost the algorithm, but most importantly, subscribe, because I'm on the grind to hit 5K subs by the start of next basketball season, and I hope y'all enjoy the video. Peace out.
And in part 2, we're going to be talking about guys that are currently free agents, all different kinds, restricted, team option, player option, so they may or may not be available. Now, to the Miami Heat, it'll be very difficult to get almost all these guys, similar to the guys we talked about in part 1, because the Heat are so far over the luxury cap. They are over the first apron, damn near over the second apron, which they need to avoid at all costs. And again, it's not about Mickey Arison being cheap. If you are over the second apron, there is new rules in this CBA that limit you from doing all kinds of things that legitimately makes it difficult for you to build a better team. I'm not smart enough to get into it, and also it would take me forever to even try to explain it. Not saying y'all don't know ball, but it's confusing for me too. That's Andy Ellisberg's job. But anyways, there's obviously a lot of variables at play here. Maybe the Heat move some guys to open some salary cap space. Maybe they do some sort of sign and trades here. So all these guys are certainly still options, even if it's not as easy as just, oh, you want this much money? Here you go. Welcome to the Heat. Now, I did separate this into 3 different categories, with category 1 being guys that are out of the league, because everyone wants me to talk about Demarcus Cousins. I mean, Demarcus Cousins' last contract was in 2021 here. He was with the Denver Nuggets there, averaged 9 points per game, which in 14 minutes looks like it's pretty good. But obviously, he's bounced around a ton, right? Because he played in how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He played in 6 different teams in the span of like 4 seasons. And there's a reason that I think he was bouncing around. And then unfortunately, he ultimately ended up playing in where was it, like Taiwan or something like that. And I got all these comments, recently, last year, the year before that, saying, why don't the Heat sign Demarcus Cousins? Demarcus Cousins is out there. And I love Demarcus as much as the next guy. I think he's one of the most underrated bigs in the league because he was legit dominant, like a walking in 40 points, 20 rebounds on any given night, right? But there's a reason that he's bounced around. There's a reason he's been out of the league. Last time we saw him in the league, he was 31 a couple years ago. So he's 33, 34 now. You don't get any better with age, especially when you have those injuries. And I truthfully just don't think he's that great a player anymore, unfortunately, sad as it is to say. So I want people to stop talking about him. Same with Dwight Howard. I can't tell you how many comments I get about people saying, why don't you get Dwight? He's out there, former DPOY. And yes, over a decade ago, the man was last in the league. In 2021, he was 36 years old. So what is he, pushing 37, 38 now? He's playing in Taiwan too. Last we saw him, 6 points per game. And it's like, what? He's out of the league for a reason. Him too. He bounced around to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different stops in his last 6 years in the league. Like, there's a reason these guys are out of the NBA. And I just had to get that rant off. And I don't want to spend more time talking about it because they're not coming to the Miami Heat. Those guys are out of the league for good, and I wish them well. Last we saw Howard, he was getting the finger wag in his face from Udonis Haslem. All-time UD moment, by the way. But category 2 is young with potential. You'll see what I mean by that. Because number 1 is Mo Bamba. Like, he's 26. He's gonna be 26 next year. Does he still have potential? Probably not. I think we kind of know what he is at this point because him too has been on 3 different teams in the last year. I think teams know what he is, which isn't great. Coming into the league, he had a lot of potential because he was 7'1" with a jumper. He's a 39% 3-point shooter last year on 1 attempt. You can see his percentages there are pretty inconsistent. Although his last year in Orlando, he did shoot 38% on 4 attempts. So he did show an ability to stroke that thing, but he's not what everyone thought he would be, sort of like a Miles Turner, I guess. Last we saw him with Philly, 4 points per game, only played 13 minutes a night. So he hasn't been really a legit rotation player in 2 to 3 seasons now. I think there's also a reason he keeps bouncing around. The reason I say he may have potential is because if the Miami Heat were to get him, we know they bring the most out of guys. And if you give Spo a 7+ relatively mobile guy with a jumper who averaged over a block a game last year in limited minutes, maybe he could work with it, or maybe he'd be the next Omer Yurtseven. I don't know. I don't really love Bamba, to be honest with you, but if it was on a minimum deal, we're cool with that, right? And I guess that's kind of what he would be at this point. That's what he was on his last contract anyways. But next, we got James Wiseman, who was the second pick in the draft, and for that reason, he was getting paid, $10 million to over $10 million a year. With last year, he was getting paid just over 12 with his last season at Detroit. Now, he will be a restricted free agent, but I mean, I guess the Pistons could match. They certainly didn't give up a lot for him, but he's a guy that will definitely be signing for less than what his previous contract was, because he hasn't been great. His last season in Detroit, 7 points per game, 5 boards. What's his free throw shooting here? He's below average free throw shooter, inconsistent because of the injuries there. Obviously, one of the bigger busts in recent memory. Imagine if the Warriors took like LaMelo, or could have traded up, got Ann Edwards. Thank God that didn't happen. But yeah, he's just not a great player. Now, from the Heat perspective, you could say, hey, he's 7-1, second pick in the draft. He's only going to be 23 years old. If they could ever get the most out of a guy, they bring him here, get healthy, and maybe they could turn him into something, but probably not. I mean, is James Wiseman a minimum player at this point? Like, what kind of second-year player? They're coming off their rookie deal, and they're going to be a minimum guy going into restricted free agency. Like, would the Pistons match that? I don't know. And yeah, I don't think he's getting more than a minimum. I really don't, especially since the Pistons got some other size already. Jalen Duran, Isaiah Stewart, who we talked about yesterday. It's not looking bright for Wiseman. He's looking like a guy that may be out of the league very soon. But if the Heat were to take a flyer on a minimum, again, I don't think I'd be mad at it. He's still very young. Next here, we got Nic Claxton, who I do think is a very good player. He's currently 24 years old, coming off a year where he made $9.6 million, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Last season, averaged 12 points per game for the second year in a row, averaged over 2 blocks again for the second year in a row. He's not a threat from 3 or for free throw line. He's god-awful, 55% from there. I know I said yesterday that I don't like guys that can't shoot free throws because they're too unreliable to play late in games. But if you are going to be a bad free throw shooter, you better be averaging over 2 blocks a night and almost 10 rebounds a game, which Nic Claxton is. But I think he's a very good player, kind of irrelevant to keep talking about because unlike James Wiseman, he's going to be a guy that gets paid more than he did on his previous contract. He'll definitely be in the double digits, probably somewhere closer to 12 to 15, if not more, $1 million a year. The Heat, no way in hell could afford that, would make the type of trades to get that. Did my light die or did I just forget to turn it on? This is what happens when you try to record all your videos in one night when your girl's at her night shift and you got the house to yourself. Anyways, Nic Claxton, too expensive. Moving on. We got category 3, which is the vets. First, we're going to start off with Isaiah Hartenstein, who revealed that he's actually mixed. Just an interesting fact. If y'all didn't hear him on the podcast with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, do with that information what you will. Similar to Claxton, he will be getting paid a lot more than he did on his previous deal, which was around $9 million a year. I think he can also expect to get $15 million plus because he had a really awesome season and awesome playoffs, and I think the Knicks would be stupid to lose him. Last year, his numbers at the regular season don't pop out at you. 8 points a game, 8 rebounds, but he's exactly what you want in a big man. Gets you over a block, over a steal a game. Was at not a great free throw shooter, I guess, either. Thought he was a little bit better than the numbers say. He's a career 69 nice% free throw shooter, but he's just excellent at playing his role as a big. Solid defender, solid rim runner, great rebounder, and he's kind of everything I would like for the Heat to have in a big to a backup big. But he'll be outpriced for the Miami Heat as well, so we can move on to the next one, which is Richaun Holmes, a guy that I've always liked a lot. Comes in at about 6'10", but he has a very big body. Was making $12 million a year, has a player option for the same amounts next year. See, here's the thing, though. If he accepts the player option, obviously he's not available because he stays in Washington. If he declines, it's probably because he's expecting more money. And if that's the case, well, the Heat can't afford him. Now, will he get more money? I don't think so. I mean, look at his last season. He only played 40 minutes total between Dallas and Washington, 7 points a night in his last stop with the Wizards there, 6 rebounds. So I think he's a good player. He's also not a guy that can stretch the floor or nothing, although he's a little bit better of a free throw shooter, 75% for his career. But at 31 years old, does he opt out and try to get like one more long-term contract? Or does he stay in, get the $12 million a year, knowing he'd likely get less, average annual salary if he was to go into the open market? Because right now, I'd say his market value is less than 12. I do think it is. And if he is out there, I would take a flyer on him, for less than 10 million a year. I think he had some off the court issues. I forget what it is, but the Heat can clean that up, bring him in here. And I think he's a nice player. So he is a guy that I'd like to take a flyer on if he maybe wants more of a role in a more consistent organization. Obviously played with Washington and Sacramento. Those are bum-ass organizations. So I could maybe see him saying, hey, I'm over 31 now. Let's go to the Heat, maybe try to win a ring, play the right way, get a diminished role, but in an organization that I trust. Maybe it works out for his career too. Maybe signs like a 1-year deal or something to try to then get a 4-year deal bag next year when he's 32. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Next, we got Andre Drummond. Another name that I hear almost as much as Dwight Howard in my comments. I got to be honest, I'm not a fan of Andre Drummond, as you might be able to tell. Now, the only reason I would consider this is because he likely will be a minimum guy, which I can say for certain, I guess, compared to the other guys, was only getting paid like $3 million last year. Bounced around a lot for a reason. That's what I always say whenever there's a bunch of comments saying, why isn't Dwight Howard, Cousins, Drummond, why aren't they signed? There's a reason. I know on paper, their numbers look great. Drummond last year played 17 minutes a night for the Bulls, and in only 17 minutes, averaged 8 points and 9 rebounds a game. Got you, almost a whole steal, half a block, right? So the numbers are decent in the limited playing time, but he's played in 6 different teams in the last 4 years. There's a reason for that. The defense is inconsistent. The motor is also a question. He's a 0 at the three-point line, god awful at the free throw line, under 50% for his career. There's a lot of flaws there. Now, if you brought him to the Heat system, I think there's things they could use him for, because there's no doubt about Drummond's rebounding. I'll give him that. He is as elite as they come at, cleaning the glass. So at least they would have him for that. And if anything, if they were to get him just to be big, I'll take it. Because he's weighs 280? So he's got like 50 pounds on Thomas Bryant. He's got 60 pounds on Orlando Robinson. So he's definitely a lot bigger than those guys. So I would take him just for that if it was a minimum. But I can't watch a guy out there that there's just something about Drummond. Y'all know what it is. He's very clumsy. I'm just tired of the Cody Zellas and Dwayne Dedmons. He's better than them, I know, but he's too similar. And last, I believe this is the last one we got here. We got Jonas Valanciunas, a guy that I absolutely love because he is a guy that is one big for being big, like a legit lumbering big. He can stretch the floor a little bit, and he's a dominant rebounder coming off a year where he just made $15 million a year. Now, I wonder what his market is, because talent-wise, I think he's around $15 million a year still, but he kind of fell out of the rotation with New Orleans. He was only getting 23 minutes of playing time there. He was at 32 seasons prior, but it kept dropping off. Now, I think they have some concerns about his fit with Zion, because although he can stretch the floor, I mean, he shot a 3.5 a game last year at 31%, was at 35% from 3 the year before that, 36% the year before that. So he can, but he's not a great spacer. He's still not somebody that the defenses run out to. Doesn't have a ton of gravity. So obviously that doesn't work super well with Zion. And on top of that, he's not a good defender. He's very slow. And when you're not a good defender, you won't get on the court. And that rings true in Miami also. But if you're saying you can come to Miami and you're going to take a deal, $10 million or less, and you're going to be a guy that can play 20 minutes a night and just get some rebounds and score a little bit. I mean, even last year in the limited minutes, 12 points per game. That's something I would like on the Miami Heat. And he's killed the Heat for years. So if anything, it gets him off the other teams. But I am curious to see kind of what his market value is there. So anyways, that's all I got to say for this video. Make sure y'all comment down below and let me know of these guys, which ones you like the best. Do you hate them all? Do you love all of them? I don't know. Let me know down below. But most importantly, like I always say, hit subscribe, because we by the time y'all watching this, we might be less than 900 from 5,000. I don't know. I say I don't know a lot, man. I was watching my last video where I reacted to the Bleacher Report article, and I said that a ton. I don't know. I gotta stop saying. I just said it again. I just said it again. I'm gonna get out of here. Like the video, subscribe. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need that head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.